Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today because we're going to be talking about the Eden emulator, its recent updates, and just how incredible it really has gotten. Because recently, if you didn't hear the news, Nintendo DMCA'd basically every GitHub for Eden as well as a couple other Switch emulators, but the reality is this thing still exists, and in my opinion, it is the #1 best way to actually play Switch games. Because even though I have a massive Switch collection as well as a Switch and Switch 2, trying to play something like Mario Odyssey on an OG Switch, the resolution's just a little bit lower and the frame rate's just a little bit lower than I would like. But the great part is emulation exists and you can do something like dial up Super Mario Odyssey to 4K or 2160p like I'm doing here, and as long as you have the system specs to be able to support it, you're going to be able to do stuff at 4K. Now you will see there was a little bit of a frame hitch when I ground pounded those 4 golden Goombas. That's just because some of this is shader compilation in the background. But if you haven't played around with Switch emulation recently, and you basically just gave up when Sister disappeared, you have to give Eden a try. And just recently it got a big update where you can basically put all the DLC on without having to deal with installing it to the NAND in the emulator, making it easier just to jump into games and have a fun time. And honestly, you know me, emulation and video game preservation is a big cornerstone of the channel, so it is something I wanted to talk about. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. And honestly, when I first played Super Mario Odyssey, I played it with Mrs. Esoterica, my wife, and we absolutely had a blast. She would play as Cappy, I would play as Mario, and it's one of those things, it was a fun time on Switch, but seeing it here run on my PC in 4K internal running resolution just makes the game shine that much more, because it has absolutely amazing graphics, a really fun vibe, and seeing it running better and looking better just makes the overall experience that much better in all of the best ways possible. And if you can't tell, I was playing around there with the word best and better just for having a little bit of fun. But the best thing about this is not just going to be games that you own in your collection. There's a ton of different mods and ROM hacks out there that you can play around with as well. This is Mario Kart 8 Custom Track Grand Prix, and it basically reinvents the wheel when it comes to something like Mario Kart 8. And even though I really enjoyed Mario Kart World on the Switch 2, I would say that game's gotten a little bit boring at this point in time, because if you played every single track and every single mode over and over again until Nintendo adds more tracks to Mario Kart World, we don't really have a ton of reason to jump back in. But fan developers and modders out there basically take the best parts of what Mario Kart 8 is and let's just decide to add in dozens upon dozens of new courses, and that is a ton of fun, and that is why something like Switch emulation is amazing. I keep saying this is why retro gaming is making a comeback, but in some instances this is also why modern gaming is making a comeback as well, because there's so many new releases these days, but they kind of always feel a little bit paint by number, like it's the same game with a different coat of paint. But when you actually have fans going in and recreating all of these worlds and levels and courses in Mario Kart 8 as the custom track Grand Prix, it just really ends up making the game feel like something that you're intimately familiar with and you played a ton of times before, but also brand new at the same time. And just like basically anything else, this is going to be something you can absolutely dial up the performance on, get a higher internal running resolution, go all the way up to 4K if your system supports it. And just so you know, as a baseline, I have an i9-12900K overclocked to 5.4 GHz on a water cooler, a 3080 Ti, as well as 64 GB of DDR5 RAM, which I'd like to say now makes me one of the richest people in the world as far as RAM resale value is concerned. But jumping into Bowser's Fury, again, another incredible game that my wife and I played together because we basically play all the new Mario Nintendo games. This just absolutely has better performance here on the Eden emulator, because this is a game that I felt like could chug a little bit on Switch. And of course there is a ton of games I could have shown you here that have better performance. This is just kind of what I like as far as the graphics, aesthetic, and overall vibe and charm are concerned. Bowser's Fury is a game I would love to see this be turned into a full game, like 10 or 12 hours, because obviously Nintendo hasn't announced anything as far as a Switch 2 Mario game is concerned yet, but I would love to see it because Kaiju Bowser 10 out of 10 would play that for a full game any day of the week and twice on Sundays. And this just looks absolutely incredible here, and it really goes to show the power of Eden emulation. Even though Citra is gone, Eden has taken its place, and if you haven't played around with it yet, I can't stress enough just how good it is. But I'll talk about some more of the new features after the soundtrack break, but I wanted you to kind of get an introduction to what this was in case you haven't played around with Switch emulation yet, because it's one of those things, I know some people don't use it. Here's a soundtrack sample, and I'll be right back with more. I mean, it looks, plays, and sounds exactly like Bowser's Fury should, and that really is impressive. And the nice thing is, on the most recent stable build, which was about a couple weeks ago as of the recording of this video, there's been a lot of improvements on some other hardware as well. So this is something you don't need to have the most impressive rig out there, and even though my PC is probably the most impressive of 3 years ago, it still definitely holds up. But you're going to get improved rendering performance across some other chipsets. You're going to get that ability to play DLC without installing into NAND, and you're just basically going to get performance and stability improvements across the board as well. And the nice thing is this emulator is available for Windows, it's available for Mac, Android. You kind of pick your platform and you're going to be able to get some decent performance out of it. But there really is just something about playing these games at 4K that absolutely make the graphics shine, and it really is a thing. The Nintendo Switch was a very fun handheld, but honestly, Nintendo's kind of going to that ethos again of selling underpowered hardware. But something like 3D World here with Toad and all of that depth of field in the background, this looks absolutely stunning here on the Eden emulator. And that kind of is the fun about this. You can play the same game more than once, but all of a sudden it feels almost like a brand new game. And even though it isn't all that old, it still feels like revisiting a really fun memory because these are games my wife and I have all played together. And now the next time we want to play something like this or get a replay in, I just load up the game on Eden on my 4K OLED TV, hand my wife a second controller, and we're basically playing, and it is an even better experience on the Switch. And I totally get Nintendo gets a little spicy about that, but as you know, so long as you own the game, you should be able to play it however you want. And don't think I don't own all of these games as well as the hardware. If you know me and you know the channel, you know my actual collection is comprehensive, and I literally do talk about stuff that I have on the shelf, as you've seen in my most recent game room tour. But Eden is just one of those things. It's going to keep these games alive for a very long time because even though Switch hardware isn't hard to find, think about 20 or 30 years down the road where it is a lot more difficult. This is the type of stuff that keeps these games basically encyclopedically libraried for all time, because you know full well Nintendo's not very good at preserving their own legacy. And if you can get better performance out of games you own, why not? Because Nintendo definitely pushed the original Switch way further than it should have, and stuff like Breath of the Wild and especially Tears of the Kingdom can be absolute slideshows if you don't try to improve their performance somehow. Let's do one more soundtrack sample because I love the music, and we're going to move back to Super Mario Odyssey, and it is going to be in 4K, so enjoy, and I'll be right back with more info. Now one thing I want you to remember is there's two different versions of Eden. There is the stable release or the release candidates, and then there is the nightly build. I am playing this on the most recent nightly build as of about 7 hours ago just to talk about some of the improved performance and some of the overall rendering fixes and stability. But honestly, at this point in time, Nintendo Switch emulation is so incredibly mature, it is hard to find a game that doesn't want to at least get playable, and it's one of those things. This is just an amazing game made all the better by actually being able to give the software the performance it needs, because all of these games in some way or another just seem to want to struggle on the original Switch. And because Nintendo gave that thing such a long lifespan because basically it was still selling in insane numbers, the late stage games that came out absolutely were just too much for the hardware in a lot of instances. So being able to fix that issue and just play games at lock 60 frames per second with higher internal rendering resolution on your PC, it's just absolutely something that I think is going to be a big thing for a lot of people. And again, even if the Eden GitHub was removed, they have their own Git repository as well. Now, I'm not linking any of this in the description down below because you know how it can be sometimes, but I'm pretty sure if you're smart and you know how to Google, you'll be able to find this stuff very easily. But I love Nintendo Switch, I love my Nintendo Switch too, and even if I hate Nintendo as a business, I absolutely love them as a game developer. Because you have to remember the people that are making the legal decisions are not the same people that are making the games, and we can always say we love the artist but we hate the company, and that's definitely a Nintendo special when it comes to stuff like this. but there's just so much fun you can do with Eden. But at its base, just getting games looking so much better and performing better really is the fundamental thing. And I love Odyssey here, how it kind of plays around with the 2D and 3D aesthetic. Every single texture, every single thing here, it's just going to look better than a real Switch, and that's definitely a win if you own the hardware in the game. But we're done. Leave me your favorite Switch game down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.